What is a dark secret that you have? I was abused by my father's live-in girlfriend, so I used to swish her toothbrush in the toilet. No one knows that I moved to Europe to stop me killing myself when I failed out of uni. All they know is that I impulsively booked a one-way ticket on a lunch break and moved a few months later. Been here 5 years this coming March, and I'm at the top university in my country, and 25th in the UK. My best friend from childhood came over to my college dorm to hang out one night. He bought coke and pills from other guys living on my hall for a party he was going to. And honestly, I was impressed with him for being so well versed in the buying of drugs and charismatic with my dorm mates. Before he left, he told me not to tell his mother what he was doing, but to tell her he loved her if he died, and I thought something was wrong. But I let him go because we had plans for the next day, and I figured he had just developed a dark sense of humor in the time since we'd last seen each other. In retrospect, he'd shown all of the signals, but I refused to see them. So I let him drive away. He didn't make it. He crashed his car many hours later that night, with no seatbelt, probably high. His mother asked me what happened. I didn't tell her anything because I wanted her to think it was an innocent accident. I didn't want her to know what he got into. I'm still keeping his secret, and never do. People in trauma often try to find someone to blame. Being the only son, I had to stay with my dad while he was terminally sick of cancer. I was 19 that time. 6 doses of chemo couldn't reduce the cancer enough to operate on him. I stayed with him for each visit to hospital. Used to spend endless nights on the hospital benches. Often used to sleep there. When he died, my family blamed me. Said I didn't properly took care of him. One member said he didn't have cancer and was treated wrongly. I just wanted to kill myself. Had to think it's somehow my fault. I loved him and wanted him to live. Get well. It's still like a deep scar when I think of that time. Years ago, I got a summer job at a grocery store. I was a teenager, from a poor family, just trying to get a job so that we could afford food. My mom couldn't afford to feed us in the summer without the school lunches, but she made slightly too much to qualify for food stamps. If you've ever been poor, you know how it goes. The manager was a complete asswipe who fired me 2 weeks in because, and I quote, "I just don't like your personality." We had never actually spoken until that point. I cried because my mom was counting on me to be able to pay for the groceries that week, and I told him that. He told me I was being dramatic. The store had these barcodes they would stick on things to mark them down if they were expired. I realized that I still had the rolls of printed up stickers in my pocket when I got home because I had been marking things down that day. I copied the stickers off onto sticky paper and stole probably a few $1,000s of groceries that summer. I technically did pay for the groceries because I was checking them out at the self-checkout and paying money for them. But I was getting salmon fillets and racks of ribs for $2, big veggie trays for $1, expensive cheese for $1.99, etc. I was careful not to be too greedy and not try to buy a cart full of expensive shit at a time. I would do several smaller transactions at self-checkouts and spread it out over about a dozen stores. It was a big, shitty, national corporate chain. I paid always in cash. I never got caught. I told my mom that I got an academic scholarship and that's where I got the money for the groceries. I don't feel bad about it, and the statute of limitations is expired anyway. My dad killed himself and called all his kids the night before. He made it look like an accident cause he thought it was the only way to take care of my mother, set her up with his life insurance. Wrote a note saying mow the lawn, then just ran lawnmowers in the garage with the doors closed till he died of gas poisoning. Neighbor ran over and helped my mom when she got home from work, thankfully, as he was the local sheriff, so when all the police arrived he took care of the talking and said the door was up. So it was duped an accident and my mom got the money my dad intended her to get. After coming to peace with it, I'd just like to urge anyone with that mindset: don't kill yourself, money comes and goes. I had a friend create a fake high school diploma for me. Then I used it to get a job teaching English in a foreign country. Then the company that hired me created a fake BA in English for me. That was then used for me to get my residence permit. Yep. Reading these make me realize I live a surprisingly vanilla life. Same. I mean, I'm not depressed. I wasn't raped or molested. I didn't commit murder or violent acts. I'm not poor or near death. I didn't commit acts of incest or other weird ass shit like that. But I did sign up for Club Penguin without my parents' permission, which means I'm going to hell. Sometimes I spend whole meetings wondering how they got the big meeting table through the door. When I was about 13, I caught my mother having sex with her brother. Haven't told anyone in the last 9 years so as to not mess my family up. I've been a mediocre employee for a few years and then COVID happened. Work from home all this time and my performance has improved. I've been promoted with $6 per hour raise in my secret. I watching Netflix and play RuneScape the entire time while treating my job as a side thing. Edit. Oh wow. Thanks y'all for the views and award. When I was 16, I went over to a buddy's place and thought it would be funny to sneak inside and scare him. I knew their back porch door was usually unlocked, so I let myself in and quietly went upstairs. His sister's room was on the way to his, and as I passed it, I saw them together. They were making out and he was fingering her. So I GTFO of there and decided I'd never mention it. They're both still friends of mine, and weirdly close, despite having their own partners in life. It still makes me uncomfortable. My mom had a friend who had 2 kids of her own, both girls. Sometimes we'd go over and visit, and normally I got the impression that my mom's friend was a pretty shit person. Her kids were a little fucked up too, but normally in more of a I don't want to behave the way you want me to way than I'm doing this to be a dick way. You know? One time we went to visit and I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old. They were misbehaving pretty bad, being like general trolls. Eventually they calmed down and I was playing some normal ass kids game when they thought it'd be funny to run around with their clothes off. Obviously I did not participate and was a bit mortified, but also maybe felt a little something I never had before. Anyways, eventually the mom caught up and found them both hiding in the room with me. We knew they'd be punished. They were misbehaving pretty damn bad. Their mom then dragged the oldest naked into the bathroom, locked outside. I heard her beat the fuck out of her child. Heard the whole thing. The yelling, the crying, and the meaty fucking slaps landing. The kid walked out of there with bruises and a black eye and went to put on clothes. It's one of the earliest memories I still have. Never even occurred to me a parent could possibly do that to their own kid. I sadly have a similar memory. I went to visit a friend, a neighbor. Her house was right next to mine, to play. I was like 9, she was 7. I remember she was younger than me. I don't remember very well how things happened, but she was supposed to do the dishes and she hadn't. Her dad dragged her to his room and beat the shit out of her. I remember I was froze in the living room hearing my friends screaming and crying and begging her dad to stop. I was told to leave by a family member. I'm almost 40 and I still remember that very well. I was homeschooled up until college, and completely cheated my whole way through my senior year. Had the answers online to everything. I'm a teacher. I gave one of my classes a link to the answer key for a textbook because I thought the teacher for that class was assigning way too much work and the kids were really stressed. No one ever found out and I resigned at the end of the year. I actually printed the link and gave it to one particular student who I knew would keep his mouth shut about where he got it but knew he would spread it around to his classmates. I had a former coworker who was a total cunt to me. She straight up bullied me at work. Twice I walked into a room while she was actually shit talking me by name. A few months after quitting that job, I looked up a revenge prank site and had a box of cow shit mailed to her at my former workplace. According to other people still working there, she threw an ugly crying tantrum the day she opened the package and was coddled by upper management. Sweet vengeance. I didn't tell my live-in partner about what I had done. He would have been livid and scared for the feds to show. 2 more fun to know edits. 1. I was so anxious about getting in trouble that I used a gift card, purchased at a store using cash, and a throwaway email account to purchase the prank. 2. I had a note attached that read "Thanks for being such a nice person, smile." When I was a young teenage boy, 13 or 14, 32-ish years ago, I was in a program called Explorers. It's part of the Boy Scouts, I believe. The troop I was in worked alongside the local sheriff's department. We were essentially young police officers in training. We'd go to the shooting range, ride along with officers, work special events with officers, etc. We had uniforms and were allowed to carry handcuffs and a radio. Every year there was a weekend event that was kind of like boot camp. It was held at a National Guard base and kids from all over the state came. There were a few hundreds kids ranging in age from about 13 to 17. We stayed in a barracks-style arrangement with a large open room with single beds, probably about 30 kids to a barracks. At the time, I was a small kid that had not yet started puberty. I got picked on a lot due to my size, which I believe was around 4'8" at the time. One day, while the whole barracks was on a break, I don't know how it started, but at some point I find myself having to defend myself from a group of older kids fucking with me. They are trying to capture me. We are making a lot of noise and pretty soon, it seems like everyone in the room is looking in my direction. More kids join in, others just watch. Soon enough they have me. What seems to me like the oldest kid had taken charge of the situation. They take me to one of the beds and have me face down. I remember trying to bite, claw and kick free. I can't get free, because handcuffs. I don't remember all of the details, but I remember them pulling my pants down and trying to penetrate me with a broomstick. To this day, I don't believe they were successful. I don't remember anyone coming to my aid, but maybe that's why it stopped. Maybe I fought enough they got bored. I don't know. The next thing I know, everyone is getting ready for the next event and we're outside lined up in formation ready to soldier on. I've never told anyone about this. Not one of the many police officers there. Not my parents. Not my wife. Just the fine people of Reddit. I don't think about it often, and I don't feel like it's had an overbearing effect on my life. But as I type this, there are a lot of emotions coming with it. Thanks for reading. Edit. Thanks everyone for the kind words and support. Summer camp. I was 13-14 years old. 7 days no poop. In the middle of the 8th night I wake up because I'm exploding. I don't reach the bathroom on time, so I pooped almost everywhere while running. I reached the bathroom, washed and then went back to my tent to sleep. The next day everyone thought an animal like a bear or deer had entered the camp and shit everywhere. No one ever found out that that bear was me. I was molested by a close family friend when I was a kid. My parents just never talked about it and let it at that. It really messed me up when I went through my teenage years. One day, When I could drive, I drove over to where he lived. But they had moved. I guess I wanted to confront him myself. That his wife stayed with him knowing what happened and his daughter probably not knowing and hoping I can crack a few ribs while I was there. My mother would get into rage mode and she would slap me around like a rag doll for years. As soon as I was pissing myself like a dog, she would go on overdrive mode. My father only had eyes for my sister and never addressed me. I made a promise to myself that one day I'll make them both pay. I cut off all ties for 5 years now and never felt better. I owed it to my inner child. Through ancestry DNA testing and processes of elimination, I discovered my paternal grandfather is not my biological grandfather. I haven't told anyone in my family, including my dad who adored his father/grandfather. I'm probably going to let this one go to the grave. My maternal grandmother, who recently died, murdered at least one of her husbands for his money, and possibly more, because she had several who died under mysterious circumstances. She was never convicted, but the dude died from rare earth metal poisoning that developed from years of eating tainted food. She cooked every single one of his meals during that period of time. Notably, she did not get poisoned herself. Distant cousin on my husband's side, widowed 5 times. Each one died in a situation she could never have been responsible for. Offshore oil platform explosion, industrial accident at a refinery, rental car accident 4 states away, fall from a construction site, heart attack from long existing issues before they ever married. We asked her if she was ever going to marry again. The best thing I can do for the male population is not to ever edit. Guys, I am shocked with the amount of upvotes. I wanted to add to the conversation with this family history and couldn't believe how it generated so much commentary. I've been on Reddit only a few years and have never had a random comment with this many upvotes. I planned an elaborate 2+ year suicide plan that let everyone down gently in the best way possible. I moved to another state, basically told everyone to F off, and just held the fort down until people quit calling. After that, I'd give it about 6 months, do the deed, and then take my life. The objective would be a good riddance more than a he will be missed response. The problem? My mother. She drove to me monthly and called me daily. She always knew something was up. She'd always end our convos with "Remember, I need you around and will always love you." And it shook me to my core. Later on, my best friend started spam calling me all the damn time. Annoyed, I finally answered. It went to the tune of "Finally you asshole. Let's catch up," and he would do that weekly. Then, oh boy, my mom brought me a cat. She put me in therapy and with a psychiatrist. He suggested we get an emotional support animal. That cat saved my life more than once. One night, I couldn't take it. I started writing the final letters to everyone. I apologized to every person that got written to about the treatment, but it was the way it had to be. Then, my mom's letter. I cried so damn hard. When I started writing about take good care of the cat, I bawled uncontrollably. I exhausted myself and passed out at my desk. I woke up to cat taps and chirps. It was time for his treats and food. He still lives with me and I love him more than anything. I'm a grown-ass man that will drop anything to pet a cat. To me, they're little angels. Nobody knows of this except my wife, mother, and therapist. And it's my darkest memory, secret. In 2009, me and my friend were smoking near the canal when a car stopped on the other side and 2 old guys threw something wrapped in a massive package into the Grand Union Canal in London. Then they sped off and so we ran away. We were 17 and 18 at the time. I'm gonna die in less than 2 years. Okay, so, back when I was like 18, someone posted a suicide note on my Facebook page. My parents rushed back home and I explained that someone probably just decided to post a fucked up prank on my account, since I had forgotten to log out of it in an internet cafe. The thing is, while the suicide note prank really did happen, I did not do that at all. I was actually going to commit suicide that day. This is because at the time, I've dropped out of 2 prestigious colleges because I was having severe depression and just never attended my classes, and I was doing the same thing in my current one at the time. I never thought about leaving a note or anything, since I had no shit left to say. I was just going to go hang myself. My parents arrived before I could even start preparing, so that prank actually inadvertently saved my life. And #X200B, edit, okay. So I just woke up and didn't expect this to blow up as much as it did. Thank you guys so much. And since many are asking and I can't reply to everyone, I just want to say that I'm doing fine. Finally on my 4th year in culinary school and going to graduate next year. Not exactly dark, but I'm pretty sure my son isn't biologically mine. There was a lot of doubt about the date of conception and multiple people his mother cheated on me with. But after months of being promised he was mine, I foolishly just accepted it, or told myself to anyway. Cut to him being 3 months old. She decides she's scared of him and can't look after him. He's now 7 years old and never sees his mom. She's vanished and doesn't even check in with him. He's my son no matter what anyone could tell me as far as I'm concerned at this point though. I've raised him and loved him unconditionally for the past 7 years and will continue to do for the rest of his life. And if I'm being honest, I'm also really scared to get a DNA test more than anything, for fear that if I found out he isn't mine I wouldn't love him or look at him the same way. I don't think I would ever do that personally, but you just never know how a highly emotional situation is going to make you react or feel sometimes. I have a very large family. People I still don't know, even I'm 44 now. Back in high school in the early 90s, I had a normal teens years. Met a beautiful girl in the swim team. We started dating. After a couple months of going out, we started getting more serious. Then the deed happened. Our relationship was maybe about a year, and when I got her pregnant, she was pregnant with twins, 2 beautiful girls. On the 8th month of the pregnancy, we found out that her mother and my mother were actually first cousins. So that made us second cousins. We found out nearly 2 years after starting dating. As you can expect, the entire family went DEFCON 1 and were divided over this for many years to come. Fuck it. By this time, she and I were deeply in love. We got married. We had a somewhat happy marriage. 12 years later, we divorced as we started to grow apart. Usually happens when married too young. Anyway, we went our separate ways. I started my business, bought her a house so that she can live in peace with our daughters, and I bought my house nearby. We divorced, but we remained close friends for the sake of our daughters. Now they're adults and love me and their mom equally, since we worked together to raise them even after the divorce. Sometime when I call work and tell them I'm sick, I really just stay home and play video games. I was raped by a priest when I was 12 and blamed my mother for it for a long time. She'd usually pick me up after mass, and that day she finished work early, saw the mass was still ongoing, and went home. She still doesn't know. Please report this to authorities. That person needs to be in prison. You know those horrible stories where you read that some monster raped a baby? I was that baby, and the monster was my dad. It happened my whole childhood, and my mother knew it as well. She walked in a few times and immediately left. She knew. We all knew. I acted out as a child unsurprisingly and was forced to see a therapist who was a friend of my parents. I told him, and he confronted my dad and gave the option to call the police, but he told me what would happen if I did. I decided not to, so the secret continued. He did it up to when I was 11, and I said this didn't feel right. He would also attempt drunk here and there when I was in my teens, and even occasionally apologized for it. Eventually I met my amazing wife, and when I had my first child, I knew I had to tell my mom and exit for my son's safety. Despite both of us knowing what happened, my mother told me for the first and last time she loved me. Didn't believe me, and I shouldn't have. Our comeback. It's been 5 years, and my wife and son have given me the life I never knew I could have. He was a well-established doctor, so no one would ever believe or help me, and later I found out he did it to his brother as well. I worry about the disabled patients who had been exposed to him during his practice. I also suffer from PTSD and have horrible, sad, violent dreams. Also, due to my abuse happening at such an early part of my development, doctors believe my amygdala didn't develop right, and as a result, I become instantly enraged or anxious from the slightest problem or issue. However, I have worked hard and have become extremely functional despite everything. I have my own house, good job, good credit, an amazing wife, and the most perfect son in the world. There are so many times I wish I had a mom or dad to brag to or get help from. I realized, however, my parents wanted me to fail so no one would believe me. So fuck you, mom and dad. I'm doing great. Edit. As a person who was gaslighted for so long, this level of support has absolutely stunned me. Merry Christmas, you beautiful, sweet people. To all you other child abuse survivors, I hope you find your peace and know there are good people in the world and that you can trust and love again.